Hi, everybody. And yes, it's another season of Virtual Fantasy Con, and we just started our panel editions. And I just want to thank everybody for coming and listening to us today. I think we have some very interesting things to talk about today. Our topic is uh, pagans, dungeon and dragon masters, witches, shamans, wizards, and I might want to add aliens and jinn to the mix because it just seems like all of this stuff seems to float around in our writing world. And authors who practice what they preach. So today we're actually going to talk to the readers. And because I know a lot of the readers out there who read our books, a lot of them have questions and they wonder if what we're writing about is real or if how much we really know about what we're writing about. Are we just picking stuff out of the air? What kind of research do we put into this? And who we are in our mundane lives and who we are behind the closet door. So I'm hoping to cudgel some of this information out of our brave panelists today. And so I guess what we'll do is we'll just go around and each of us will just introduce ourselves and tell a little bit about ourselves and how we fit into this topic today. Where do we fit in this topic? Who are we really? And how that shines through in our books. So to help these guys out, I guess I'll start. So they kind of have an idea where we're going with this. So I'm your moderator today, and my name is Denise Guru, and I do write fantasy, visionary, speculative fiction, paranormal romance, and these are. Oh yeah, Ben's got my book. Yay! So these are some of my books here, and we're hoping to have everybody show off their stuff today because we want you guys to go out and get some of these books and read. These are real people here. We write what we do. So what do I do? Well, I am a Reiki master teacher. I'm an herbalist. I work with crystals. I'm a jack of all trades, trying to be a master of one of them. I'm not really sure. I guess you could say I'm pagan. Took the year to day training to be initiated as a witch. But I really am into healing, herbal art. I love, working with herbs and digging into the ground. And so, a lot of that you'll find in my books. The Dragon Horse Saga. Here's the first one. That one actually is sort of my life experience working with the healing modalities and the equine. And one of these, the equines, ended up being one of my greatest teachers. And as a lot of you know, teachers come in all shapes and forms. And so this horse that I saved from cancer, it just turned out to be a whole big journey of self-discovery for me. So in a nutshell, that's a little bit of who I am and how I fit in this discussion. So is there anybody who would like to go after me? Is anybody ready? Oh, come on, Sarah.
All right, I can do this. My name is Kali Sarah, aka Sarah Berman, and my writing is interesting because as of yet, I am officially published in anthologies mostly. So I have the Pagan Leadership Anthology, the Pop Culture Grimoire, There's a science fiction, Dreams Eternal magazine that I was in the first issue of. Just got accepted into Visions for Between the Stars through Lilycat Publishing. So a lot of publications. Some of them are nonfiction, some of them are fiction. I do have a children's book out, the ABC Book of Quizzes. I've been pagan for, oh gosh, how old am I? 20 years. Recently got into heathenry, so I'm exploring that. I'm actually working on editing and selling my first full-length, standalone urban fantasy. So that's been very interesting. One of the feedbacks that I've gotten from my beta readers, though, is that the magical realism for it is really good. And that was one of the things that I was going for, because my rule for fantasy is completely violating everybody else's rules, which is no fireballs. No fireballs. So I do a lot of description of how empathy works, how aura works, how energy manipulation works, how the subtleties work, and in the end, she does actually create a fireball, but it's not her fault and it's not magical. So,
well, that's cool. No, go ahead. Oh, I have a question for you, though. You said heathenry, and I'm sure some readers are going, what is that? So can you kind of expand a little bit on that?
Heathenry is the sort of the druidic version of Norse. Okay. So Odin, Thor, very research heavy, very historically based, very... I tend to be the outlier because most of them actually don't practice very much in the way of magics. And so I kind of got voluntold to be the one who does the gods interactions, because I actually do it. Okay. So they base their belief systems on the Norse myths, and their lifestyles on the values that we've managed to glean from archaeology as to how they actually lived. So
great. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I think a lot of us will end up doing this. I think we're going to cross over and glean from all different cultures and bring it into our story, so which is really interesting. So, who is next? Ben, come on. We'll you're an old pro. Come on.
Well, I'm Benjamin Tao. I'm a sort of a dyed-in-the-wool Whovian. I was a dedicated Dungeons and Dragons player back in the 80s. And I was the dungeon master to a group of dear friends I had during my military years. And I actually wrote my first book, Death Quest to Pearland, in 1982. Just didn't publish it till 2005. My first trilogy of books are very heavily Dungeons and Dragons based. I love the game, and these stories, Death Quest, its prequel, The Orb of Shalar, and then the third, The Magic, were all based on my love of D&D. The fourth book I wrote, The Chalice of Mystery, is pretty much the put into prose a dungeon that my characters went through called Red Mountain Dungeon, and it's just a belly up to the bar fight. There's not anything socially redeeming. There's nothing socially relevant. Just exploring, engineering, and just things into play. More classic elements of the Dungeons and Dragons game, more or less in a novel. And I started thinking, more in terms of, well, how could all of this have come to be, and how could I tie some of this together? Some of these things running around in my mind. And I came up with the prequel to all of my stories, the Dawn of Magic, which it actually was the fifth book I wrote, but is the oldest in timeline, and it sort of ties together all of my series. It series of the world of sorcery called Sagan, and you might guess who one of my idols, given the name of my imaginary world.
Yeah.
But at any rate, these worlds are connected to other worlds by threads of magic and beings that can travel across space and time, some through magic and some through just innate abilities. And led me to the beginning of my current series, the Elf Dream series. And as I read through some of these older books and look at some of the newer ones, Lost Spellweaver is my Elf Dream series. And sometimes when I look at that book, I think maybe I changed from being the dungeon master to the nature boy. But at any rate, my idea from the Elf Dream series is to create a group of characters. I enjoy creating races of creatures that just come out of my own mind. And at the end of one of these stories, I like for the reader to be wondering, who are the good guys, who are the bad guys, and gosh, who won? And when all of that is said and done, I just hope that my readers enjoy reading the books as much as I enjoyed writing them. And but I feel like magic should be more than just pointing a wand and saying Shazam. I like to have material components, complex spells, the gesturing. And if the wizard is casting a complex spell and a kobold comes up and hits him on the big toe, it's going to ruin his concentration and going to void his spell. And I like to always have that little bit of a concern in there. I do have a lot of fireballs. I do have a lot of other things in there, but there's a cost to using that magic. The spellcaster who uses destructive magic always gives up a bit of himself or herself or itself, if you will. But I love dragons, love sorcerers. My other career is primary care medicine. I've practiced family for about 35 years. And I do bring into my practice the alternative medicine. I think that each patient is unique and are going to respond to different treatments. In my own personal care, I take my milk thistle every day to help my liver protect itself from all of those prescription medicines that I take to try to keep the ailments at bay. But that's in a fairly long nutshell. I thoroughly enjoy reading fantasy, writing fantasy. I've branched out a bit with some of the reading I've done in the last few months, and just kudos to getting your first book done. Like I said, I wrote my first one in '82, didn't publish it till 2005. So stay at it.
And that's true. What we write about and what we do, I think a lot of us feel the same way. It's not just, you have to take responsibility when you walk the talk, and it is not just, bippity bobbity boo. And I think, a lot of us might want to, we probably preach that. And I read some of Ben's books, and I'm reading The Spellweaver right now. And, he really is teaching about the forest, and I think that's what a lot of us, want to teach about too, is, everything in our world is alive and living, and, it all needs to be respected. And, so I guess if you really wanted to talk to, if you really got to know about this field, we're kind of boring sometimes. It's not all throwing fireballs and being the best kickboxer and all of that. When you get really down to the magical realism of it, it can be, it's a hard, long study, and it takes a lot of years. And so, I think that's just something that we want you people out there as readers to understand. If you do play with magic, there is, get back what you put out, so really be careful. So now it is Brandy's turn, and she's kind of a newbie to the Zoom chatting, so we kind of let her go last so she could kind of hear us talkers. And so go ahead.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm a talker too.
Okay, well, here's your chance.
Sure. Awesome. My name is Brandy. I pin name Amelie Contour, which nobody can ever pronounce. It's actually very, very close to my legal name, which was the whole reason I picked it. I currently have a grand total of 1 book out, so everybody can take a look. It's called Choosing Her Chains. It's the first of a planned trilogy called the Daughter of Kieran series. I'm kind of knee-deep in book 2 at the moment. I'm also a very slow writer, so even though I'm done next year, don't count on it. And I am a newbie in kind of a lot of ways. One, still a fairly new, like most writers, have written my whole life, but pretty much hid them from anybody for years. Also, kind of see this first novel as kind of my coming out novel. I came out as lesbian a decade ago. My wife and I just got married this past October, so that was great. But I have not come out so much to as many people as no longer being Christian. And so a lot of the themes that I'm kind of exploring in the fantasy world of Choosing Her Chains is not only my own continuing to understand some of my own thoughts and beliefs of magic, but also in my previous experiences deep in Christian mythology, kind of, how would I best put it? Both it and corrupted it. The novel, there is an underlying belief in the difference of light magic, dark magic, but also the fact that the protagonist is clueless. It drove me crazy writing it. It drove a bunch of people crazy reading it, but the whole point is her exploring what she believes and realizing what everyone told her before is a lie. Specifically in a world where she's one person who doesn't have it. So that's about it where I am. I've been studying I kind of have felt I was probably a pagan my whole life and just didn't realize that's what it was. So the past 6 doing a lot of reading, a lot of studying. I will probably dive headfirst into kitchen witchery as a path for now, but I also see myself as very, very open-minded to just about everything, and I'm learning like everybody else. So that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, well,
learning's what we do every day.
Well, it is. It's a journey of self-discovery. Right, Ben?
Well, I think we include our interest as well. One of particular interest, I've been very interested in Irish mythology, and my fourth Elf Dream series, Emerald Islands, has a lot of my interest in Irish mythology there. I used to have the creatures like the pukas, the kelpie or the water horse. There's a nice leprechaun, my concept of him in there, and I enjoyed doing that. And in my series, I guess are my favorite characters are the things I write. And the Mender is sort of what my concept of what a druid might be. Menders are not sorcerers. They are somewhat magic in of themselves, and they use herbal remedies. And for instance, my Mender, who is called, that's as close as his. He liked to take a pole and a line and go down by the river and catch fish, and that's kind of the name they gave him. His other name they wouldn't be able to understand, I guess. And Menders are born with the awareness of their kind, like every experience that every other Mender has had. They have in their minds when they come into the world fully from the cocoons that they come from. So I think in terms of I like my books. They're particularly interesting in like the anthology and fund. And Denise came up with a very nice picture that just fit in my mind exactly what Fisher would have looked like. And I try to make the Mender as much as I can an entirely neutral in the world, not to damage or destroy, but he tries to heal. He'll heal first a soldier, and then he'll heal the soldier's enemy without thinking otherwise. They're to be neutral, and to my main characters in the one of the worlds of the Elf Dream series, the Drells, as I call them. They had to name them something, so they were sort of like elves, forest elves, if you will. But they're very much lovers and one with nature and the trees. My books are filled with thinking and living and breathing trees that can uproot and walk around, and little small plants that can communicate intelligently with the Drells. And to read the Elf Dream series is to kind of become one with the forest and a friend of the forest.
Yep.
Make believe is wonderful.
But is it really make believe? I mean, come on. That fantasy. Now, I really hate that word, because really, are we writing made up crap? I mean, come on. Is it coming out of the air? I mean, even Tolkien said he was writing about our forgotten past, so Ben, it's not made up. Come on. It's probably something from a past life. I mean, I love to go into my past lives, and actually,
the memory is certainly clear in my mind, perhaps like Mender's, that we're all born with that knowledge when we arrive, and it comes to light in our minds as we take our steps.
Right. Well, and
I actually think I probably was there when they constructed Stonehenge.
You probably. Well, and you're a physician, so
in fact, as old as I am, I may well have been there.
Well, Candlelight and Cobwebs. Actually, I started writing basically because of my daughter's rescued cat. And I've always been fascinated by the oracles of Delphi. And I really think I had a past life as an oracle in Delphi, Greece, because the story just fascinated me, and even before I knew what it was. So, I just think the ladies too, I'm sure they're probably gleaning something from their past, which brings us to a question. I know we got 10 minutes, but if you guys have time, when our 10 minutes is up, we can go for a break and come back. So we'll talk about that when our clock strikes 12. But Brandy, I know you had a question that you had brought up in our group convo, and I'm just wondering if we could address your question. You go ahead and give us your question.
Sure. No, my big question is not only how our beliefs affect our writing, because like everyone else, I totally believe that who we are as people comes out on the page. It. How the problem can change our own belief structures. I know I set out with one goal in my novel in mind, and it totally took on a life of its own, and pretty much it put me on the pagan's path just by writing out my own feelings about Christianity, kind of in a magical setting. So what other people feel about that particular item?
Go ahead, Sarah.
Well, actually, that speaks very clearly to certain passages in Too Weird, which essentially I'm trying to have a Valkyrie explain what is going on with the myths to these two people who have just figured out that Valkyries are real life things and not just, something that they can kind of dismiss. And so they're like, wait a second. Okay, now it's really real now. And so she's explaining all of these things and discussing how, the myths interact. And one of the things that she talked about is how all pantheons are completely and 100% real and accurate. When I was writing this, I was like, wait a second, this is exactly what I've been trying to say for years. It took me talking through this character before it crystallized into something that was a cohesive, understandable concept. And so, yes, I completely agree that being able to write these things down in a fictional way gives us a sort of freedom to be able to crystallize our own ideas without having to worry about what other people are going to think or fitting them into current paradigms or anything like that. We are free to just write what we believe. And I do think that helps, and I think that it gives us a way to vocalize or type vocalize our beliefs and experiences than it would or for just conversation.
Yep, that is so true. That I could talk another book about this subject. So we're short on time here. So Ben, do you have anything to add to this?
No, I just encourage people to write. I think that what we put down on our page, the bottom line is it is ours. It's something that whatever reason can't be taken away from you, and encourage people to stay at it. I've been find that it's a great. I don't know if it's escape is the right word. Maybe my working in the real world out there is my escape, is what the escape is. But I just think that we need to stick to our creativity. That's what you feel, right?
Yep.
And by the way, the descriptions you made of Delphi seemed like they were written by someone who was there.
Well, yeah. And I think, like I said before, I think it's a journey of self-discovery. When I wrote Dragon Horse, I wrote it because I wanted these people who were starting in the healing fields. I wrote it so descriptively that I wanted them to feel like they were actually doing the healing themselves and hearing the messages around them and watching the wildlife interact and telling them how they're doing or how they're not doing or how they're thinking. And, when I wrote Dragon Horse, a lot of the stuff I didn't actually get until after I went and wrote the second one, Samaya. And Samaya actually went backwards. It went back to the main character's life living in Lemuria. And so I think when it's weird because when you research, it's just like the information it just comes to you. It's there. It's so easy to find. And I just think it's because we've already, we're so in tune. We know we're just so in tune. We know where to go. We know where it is. And so, but I've grown volumes from writing Dragon Horse to writing Candlelight and Cobwebs. And I just think all of you go through the same thing. Every time you write something, you grow from it. And then, and when I read Dragon Horse, it's kind of like, oh God, did I believe that? Oh geez, because I believe differently today, but there's always somebody who's who's got to start somewhere. You know, so even though they're reading a book that my beliefs have grown or expanded, if they read that book, they're still at that level. So they're going to read that and go, oh, you know, so it's kind of like we're all kind of turning a little light on for everybody, you know, and if they read that whole book and just pick up one message in that whole book, that was worth writing that book. You know, it just, so, you know, I don't, you know, have you guys had that same issue too, where you've written something and then it just opens up volumes and then you can't wait to write this next book because you learned so much from the first one?
It's why I've written 8 prequels. My first, on the timeline, my first book is number 9. You know, as far as time goes, I keep thinking of things that ought to have happened, and now I've written 8 prequels. So it's just, it's and again, sometimes when I read stuff that I wrote, 30 years ago, and I've thought about going back and changing that book, but no, that's the way I was then, and I want it to stay that way.
Yeah. Well, there's a reason. Well, we're down to a minute and a half, you guys. So do you want to wrap it up, or should we continue this into a second? Or do you think we got it?
Well, I think everyone pretty much put their thoughts down. Again, the message I have to readers is keep reading, and the message I have to writers is keep writing.
Right. That's right. Because, you know, we're all in this together.
Maybe all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, and I do think the reason some of us write what we do is because the outside mundane world is really not where we want to be. So we write the worlds that we want our worlds to be. We're all writing our own universes, you know, the way we see them. You know, so, but yeah, it's interesting. And, you know, you readers out there, these authors here are talking about stuff that they know about, stuff that they've experienced or where they're at. So, you know, if you want to read stories that have the magical realism, you know, I highly suggest you looking all of the authors up here and reading their books. There's a lot of stuff out there, you know, but this stuff here, this is tried and true stuff. So, so if we're all done, I guess I just want to say thank you, everybody, and thank you guys for coming and chatting and spilling your guts and